Hi folks, we're Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining us audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about something that's really only just starting to get talked about and get noticed. I've been onto it for years, and I'm always surprised continually surprised rather, that nothing's really been done about it. And that's the level of coordination between globalist-funded NGOs, activist NGOs, the public service, academia, and think tanks, and how they'll decide to run with a narrative, and then it's seamlessly put together as a full-on media propaganda presentation, very well coordinated, centrally scripted. Everyone stays on message, and the extent to which that's used by the globalist cabal to put over their propaganda and convince people that really they're the good guys, the ones that are forcing mass migration on you and lowering your wages and increasing the cost of living to the point where your standard of living has fallen by 2/3 over the last 50 years and so on. That's all by the by, but the scripting is done, and the stage management and the choreography, and it's impressively done. I think but no one's opposing it or calling it out. So we've got things like activist NGOs, which are given charity status, supplying paid up journalists and other workers to various media outlets, and supplying them directly to political parties as propaganda producers. So pro-globalist political party can suddenly have access to have many journalists and commentators that they want, that'll be online, that'll be sent into the newsrooms of the big media outlets or the newspapers or any sort of outlet that reaches people and can persuade the public one way or another, or it's hoped can persuade the public one way or another. They've got mass resources available to them, and again, this very tightly choreographed thing. Now, I just look at there's a news outlet in I think it was Canada, where they had a surprisingly large number of interns. In fact, these weren't interns at all. They're calling them interns to get round the idea that they're paid by an NGO. These people are professional propagandists or professional propagandists, and particularly targeted towards influencing the young. And they're put into this media organisation to do this propaganda. They're all paid by the NGO. The NGO is supposedly an apolitical charity. Now, there's a number of laws that are being broken here. The NGO is again meant to be apolitical. It's got charity status, so it can't have political affiliations, but it still does. And it's done quite brazenly, but for some reason, no court or government or anybody really wants to do anything about it. They're just allowed to carry on. And it's a big part of the globalist propaganda messaging comes through this. Media outlets that couldn't afford to have anywhere near that number of journalists or writers or producers, or this whole thing. The NGO supplying writers, producers, directors, graphic artists. The whole thing. Entire production teams are being supplied to do various news stories and so on that the media outlet couldn't afford in a million years. So that's quite a brazen breaking of the law there. The activist NGOs are penetrating, or not so much penetrating, cooperating, collaborating, colluding with multiple media organisations, globalist controlled, to provide them with all the staff resources and facilities they need. And it's not just staff, but say they want to do a story that's the other side of the country, and they can't really afford the hotel bills and the travel and the this and that and so on. Then the NGO pays for it and it supplies the staff to do it. So this is the extent of the collusion and how brazen it is. So that's the one. The other law that's been broken is that there's various antitrust laws against media organisations colluding on a story. So you get huddling in the back room, deciding on, yeah, let's all run the same story. Let's all say the same thing. Let's all say that Donald Trump's a Nazi, for example, and then we'll run. That too is colluding, and that is breaking various antitrust and anti-collusion type laws that exist. But no one's chased it. And I've noticed there's a few comments and a few things coming out of the Republican people in the United States, in Washington, that they're considering looking into some of this and taking action, but they should. And if these sort of things are pursued, particularly if the activist NGOs are denied charity status, this is absolutely vital. If they're denied charity status, that chops out a vast army of propagandists and activists and agitators. A vast army of them can be cut out just by changing their tax status. They're not a charity. They're a bunch of they're political activists. There's nothing fucking charitable about them. And a lot of these NGOs, well, they claim to be charitable, they are simply a front for political activism and agitation and so on. And these people are even gifted offices inside universities so they can stir up the students and agitate there and be in a position to call out a renter mob. And there's other acts of collusion that really need to be looked at and clamped down on. For example, if the teachers or the academic staff decide that there's an LGBTQ or climate change protest march or something in the downtown, they can give the students a day off to go and attend that and say, well, if you go there, I'll give you an extra grade. I'll give you an extra grade points on your end of year marks or grades or points. So it's actively, there's an active cabal there to encourage this sort of thing. But if someone says, I want time off to go to the Donald Trump rally or something, or to a rally that's not left wing, Republican politician or something, and no, if you do that, I'll fail you. So that needs to be jumped, because that again is a form of collusion and conspiracy to collude, that which there's it breaks, in my view, at least a number of laws. So there needs to be I think a real machine that is well funded, that can go and launch mass lawsuits all over on these sorts of things. This is what the globalists are doing. They've got lawyers and legal agitators and stirrers and attack dogs all over the place. I mean, look at the way they're going after Trump and the way they went after other people, Rudy Giuliani and so on. And there needs to be, I think, a response to that, where masses of lawsuits are launched against the the activist NGOs and so on, and that these activities, which are a very big part of their information machine, their information output machine, a lot of that can be cut off, or will cost them a great deal more and be much harder for them to do. And so they need to be, I think, considered. You've been attached to us today, your pushback channel, and thank you for listening.